The title of this sermon is, you could all be seated, The Conundrum, to watch or not watch. You like Shakespeare's thing, to watch or not watch. This is the question, to watch or not watch. Start off by reading two scriptures. They kind of pull somewhat in different ways, but I think hopefully it all makes sense when we finish, or we'll understand it better than we did before. Matthew 24:42. Matthew 24:42. Watch, therefore, for you know not what hour your Lord is coming. But know this, that if the master of the house had known what hour the thief would come, he would have watched and not allowed his house to be broken into. Verse 44. Matthew 24:44. Therefore, you also be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. Who then is faithful and wise servant, whom his master made ruler over his household to give him food in due season? Blessed is that servant, whom when his master shows up, it's like a parable, he'll be still doing what he's supposed to be doing, even though he thinks he delayed his coming. The conundrum is, we're told by Jesus on one hand, he's going to come as a thief in the night. No one can know when he comes. On the other hand, he says, watch prophecy, watch events, so you can kind of know when he's coming. Wait a minute, that seems to be pulling in two different directions. And I hope to explain it. One is, let me just say the obvious. And it's a humble thing to say, even though we know Bible prophecy better than certainly most churches because we know certain keys, there are going to be some surprises. There are going to be some things that are going to surprise us. I don't know. If I knew what they were, they wouldn't be a surprise. But I'm almost certain of that. We will have some twists and turns that will kind of catch us off guard. So what's the conundrum? Since we cannot know when Jesus returned, some will say, why bother to watch? Because he's going to sneak up on us. Why watch the precursors of his return? Yet he tells us to watch. Why? Now, I was told this by another man just last week about some other churches of God. They have said preaching prophecy is verboten. We do not preach prophecy anymore. We've been burned in the past or whatever. Plus, certain groups, I don't know, about a decade or so, maybe a little less than that, they went crazy. We know the end is coming. Send a bunch of your extra savings and come to the compound. They did some crazy stuff. And of course, as the years went on, hey, nothing's happening. We're not in a place of safety in the world. So they were embarrassed. Now, one is they went too far, crying wolf, wolf, which we don't recommend doing anything that foolish. But so now they went to the opposite extreme, at least some. We don't talk about prophecy. Do you realize that goes against what Christ just said? They don't watch. So, the two actually go together. Watching prophecy and knowing that Jesus is going to come back when the world is caught off guard. The two things actually go together. First of all, remember, the devil is very tricky, very powerful, very intelligent, and very seductive. All the bad things have happened in the world in the last many, many centuries, but getting worse in the last 100 and so years, because the devil is so tricky and seductive. So expect things to be tough to know. Just because you can't know for sure when Christ is coming doesn't mean you shouldn't be watching, speculating, looking at possibilities. Like a canoe going down a rapids. You've seen some of those pictures where a canoe is going down the rapids. They know there's some hidden rocks and some little waterfalls that could throw them off, and they might even drown. And they know there's some dangers. But it would be stupid to say, let's go down there with our eyes closed. Wouldn't that be the dumbest thing? Yes. So just because you know there are twists and turns and shocks doesn't mean you should close your eyes. We don't want to look at it. That would be stupid. I don't think so. And it's a defeatist approach, just like saying you're lost. You've lost the battle. when you're afraid to preach prophecy, when you're afraid to speculate. By the way, I think it's not wrong to be afraid to be wrong. Maybe I'll say that differently so it makes more sense. Someone might say, I'm not going to do any speculation on prophecy because I could be wrong. It's not, being wrong is not the worst thing in the world. It really isn't. Now, I'm not saying basic doctrines or something stupid like one man said, Coulter, that the prophet Ezra was wrong. Saying any part of the Bible is wrong, you're wrong. But saying you don't understand it, or you see it in a different light than you used to see it, or you see things more clearly than you used to see them, or something like that is okay. You get the difference? And I'll use a science example. If you look at a history of science, and Edison admitted this, he said the many false light bulb filaments he tried helped him get to the true filament. I think he went through thousands before he got the right combination. And that actually is true of a lot of scientists. They believe the law of physics and the laws of, thermodynamics. All those laws are true. They're not denying science. But they have hypotheses. I think if we put more of this in there, more heat, this is what will happen. And then if they're proven wrong, they say, well, that means, what it usually means, it's a nuance. You have to study it more closely. Every mistake, if you analyze it humbly and properly, can bring you closer to the real truth. That's how science usually works. And this idea that science is settled, that's kind of, I know Fauci pushed that, and I'm science. What an arrogant statement to make. You know how stupid that is, especially on something new like a new virus. The science is never settled. It'll take them years to fully figure out what a man-made virus with additional functions added by science labs, how it changes the natural things and how it's going to affect our... Anyway, it'll take them years to fully figure that whole thing out. And it's stupid to say it's settled science and we don't want to hear any other theories. No, you need to hear the others. If they're wrong or right, eventually you'll get focused in on the truth. So if we speculate on the third temple, for instance, in prophecy, believe me, like we said last night, when Daniel talked about the abomination of the temple, there was no second temple. And he wrote about it as an end-time event. There was none. Now, maybe he could speculate that there would be a second temple coming, maybe less 20 or 30 years after his death. Maybe he could speculate that, but still, there wasn't one. The fact that there is no temple now, there will be a temple. There are too many Bible prophecies that say so. Now, how and when and why, those are all issues to be discussed. Well, if we debate them and we're wrong, or our timing is off, we'll just learn more. We'll say, well, we didn't get that quite right. Let's watch it. So we shouldn't be afraid to speculate because we might not get it right. If you're humble, you say, I don't have to be right all the time. Who's right all the time? Any scientist, real honest one who's doing cutting-edge research admits a lot of their hypotheses are proven wrong. They learn something from that, hopefully, then they make a new one until they finally get it right. And the same thing is true with prophecy. Paul, the apostle, certainly he believed in watching prophetic events. And here's what he said. 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 2. 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 2. For you yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so comes as a thief in the night. For when they say peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes upon them, as labor upon a pregnant woman, and they shall not escape. Now what Paul is saying is, and if you read that whole section just before that, he's talking about the return of Christ in chapter 4, and then he goes on more. What he's saying is, even though Christ is going to come as a thief in the night, he's predicting there will be a false peace and safety in the world. Let's just speculate for a minute. Since we said speculation is okay, probably a lot of events are going to happen that look like the end of the world is coming. and bad things are coming, and you get this giant empire in Europe. The Holy Roman Empire is back, and you got a super pope or whatever his title is, and a super king, super dictator, the beast, and he's in total power, total control of everything, and people are worried. Then suddenly you get, in the Roman Empire, called it Pax Romana, the peace of Rome. Once Rome conquered everything, you didn't have a lot of those little petty wars between states. As a matter of fact, that was their excuse for going into the Middle East. The fighting between the king of the north, the Roman Empire said, this is bad for commerce, this isn't good for society. You all got to stop fighting or we'll come in as peacemakers. They eventually did that and took over. Well, you know the story. It all became part of the Roman Empire. And the world did have peace. Actually, there was a time in the Roman Empire, and it lasted for quite a while, where you could travel from the border of Scotland all the way deep into Eastern Europe, through the Middle East, all across North Africa, Spain, Portugal. That would include a big chunk of the world, and use one currency, the Roman coins, and speak one language, either Latin or Greek. Wouldn't need a passport. You can't even do that today. Even the common market can't do that. So they had peace. He will create a false peace. Commerce will blossom. Now, underneath it, there'll probably be secret labor camps and evil stuff going on, but it'll be on the QT. As far as the general public will know, the world's in peace and prosperity under the benevolence of the great dictator, whatever his title will be. I think of some of the titles that Mussolini took, but whatever title he takes, the man, the leader. I think Hitler and Stalin mean the man of iron, or at least that's one way you could translate the word. But under his leadership, and then all of a sudden, people will forget about those Bible prophecies if they ever knew them that well anyway. And a lot of church people will be lulled. We've got peace, prosperity, all is well, at least on the surface. And then all of a sudden, things fall apart and horrible things happen. There's even a small parallel of that in World War II. You know that after Germany and Russia divided up Poland, except for maybe the British blockade and some U-boat action, there was nothing in the war, nothing going on, absolutely nothing. They called the Germans, had a word for it, the Nothing War, Zero Iced or something like that. All was quiet on the Western Front. I know that's from another book from World War I, but that's what it was. The French made a little push to support Poland, but not much. They didn't really want to get in a war. They were frightened. They didn't do much of anything. So nothing happened. And probably nothing would have happened. But all of a sudden in May 1940, the Germans unleashed the Blitzkrieg. And all of a sudden they went from peace to, within 5 weeks, or give or take a little, all the Western Europe and Central Europe was under Hitler's control. It was a shock to the world. I mean, because after what happened in World War I, how they fought over a couple 100 miles for years, all of it was that quickly gone. You know that Japan and America were having peace talks in Washington, D.C. This is true. I mean, this is true. I won't go into all the details, but just to make it a short part of the story, the Japanese ambassador knew that they were going to attack Pearl Harbor in 1 week. And but they still kept the peace talks going. We don't want any trouble with Japan, and I'm going into all the details. And he was supposed to deliver Sunday morning declaration of war half an hour before the Japanese fleet, sunk the American fleet at Pearl Harbor. He got tied up in traffic in D.C. You can believe it. And he got there late. So FDR could actually say it was a day of infamy. But they actually thought they'd have peace in the Pacific. The bad guys got very deceptive. Peace or false peace is a weapon of war. You just got to think it through strategically. You disarm the other side by making them think it's going to all be peaceful. Now, the king of the South in the end time prophecy is part of the picture, but we won't worry about it. What I'm saying, there will be some false peace of somehow, some way that will lull even true Christians asleep. You'll think, well, I saw all those events happening like the third temple and him desecrating the, whatever, maybe it hasn't been desecrated yet, but the third temple and some other prophetic events happening in the Middle East and in Europe. But the end of the world isn't coming. It's peace. All that stuff was wrong. And the devil will send a message. Relax. Eat another piece of chocolate cake. Relax. Don't get all worried about Bible stuff and the end of the world. And here's what Paul says in verse 4 of 1 Thessalonians 5. But you, brethren, are not in darkness, so that day should overtake you as a thief. In other words, it's going to catch the world as a thief in the night, not Christians who are watching prophecy. It will catch the world by surprise, a thief in the night. It will not catch us as a thief in the night. Should not overtake you as a thief. You're all sons of light, sons of the day. You're not of the night nor of darkness. See, darkness hides things. What is hidden to the world will not be hidden to us. We'll all be lulled asleep a little bit, like a hypnosis of evil propaganda. But those of us watching prophecy will say, yeah, but this is prophesied fulfilled. This one is fulfilled. The end's got to be coming sometime soon. The world will be fooled, but not us. 1 Thessalonians 5:6. Therefore, let us not sleep as others do, but let us watch and be sober. In other words, as you see prophetic events fall in place, like Great Britain being out of the EU, the church predicted that like 30, 40 years ago, even when it didn't look like that was going to happen. We're going to why we knew it, but we knew who the Anglo-Saxons were. For those who sleep, sleep at night, and those who get drunk are drunk at night. But let us who are of the day, meaning us prophecy-watching Christians, be sober, putting on the breastplate of faith and love and the helmet of hope. We're going to be armored with faith. Faith means you believe in the Bible. You believe in Bible prophecy. Everything written in there is going to happen when it's supposed to happen. Now, we might speculate as to when and the details, but it is going to happen. Just know it. Have faith in it. The Bible is credible. That's why we did the Daniel thing. It proves the Bible is credible. One thing I was impressed with when Michael Armstrong said, even if he said they're right about it was a Jewish forgery of the first century, even if you go there, how did Daniel know that the Holy Roman Empire would be divided into two legs, in two parts? That didn't happen, at least not the official breakup of the Roman Catholic Church, Eastern Orthodox, until I think it's 1056 AD. That's like 11 centuries after the so-called forgery, and actually 15 centuries after Daniel wrote it. There's no way you can explain that, and many other things in Daniel. You cannot explain it away, even if you say the Jews forged it at the last minute, which they'd have a hard time doing because they had different synagogues that had a copy of Daniel. How would they keep changing it? You see the problem they would have, the same one we would have today, just smaller. But the Bible is right. Have faith in the Bible. Have love for Christ. Have hope that Christ is coming back. Now I'm going to tell a corny joke, but it kind of makes a point. This guy gets a new credit card in the mail. There's a big sticker on it. He peels off the sticker, and the sticker says, to activate this card, call this number. He calls the number, and they say, push button 1, option 1. He pushes option 1, and they tell him press another button to talk to a live operator. He pushes that button. Then a live person says, who answers the phone, says, I'm your credit card activator. Give me the necessary information. So he starts to try to give her the information, and then it says, how can I help you? And I've had that happen. I thought I was talking to a real person on some business line or charity line. It was an AI. It was simply a computerized voice, but it sounded so real, and they even answer one or two of the obvious questions right. But then if I ask it something I'm not supposed to ask it, then it comes back to, it's like, I didn't expect that. I don't know what to do. You can tell. Well, I tell that story to mean that I believe with CGI, that's computer generated video, the propaganda machine of the beast can probably create all kinds of lies, get you to believe all kinds of things. By the way, do you know, like if you take a video of the Capitol riot, but you only edit out certain scenes that you want people to see, you can actually create a vision that's the opposite of the truth. You just really, especially if you got hours and hours and hours of different tapes, different angles, just edit out the ones you want and cut it off before you see who actually threw the first club or whatever. I believe that we're going to see propaganda. And at one point, right now, at least probably in some parts of the world, probably Europe and China, all the media is controlled by the government on one side, maybe, except for maybe one outlet. Same thing's true in Canada. In America, that's not quite true yet. But when the beast gets everything fully going, he'll have all the media, I assume, doing his bidding. And they'll have, you will be surprised how many mainstream churches will cooperate. I just heard this on the radio this morning. Canada has taken their government doctor-sponsored suicide to a high level. All you have to do is tell the nurse, oh, I feel depressed, I want to die. She can pop in the next hour and they can give you an injection that'll kill you. They now have churches in Canada, I think like it was United, I hope I get it right, the United Church of Canada. I hope I get the name right. But whatever it is, if I said the wrong thing, you'll know I meant to get it right. The United Church of Canada is now having prayers for people that they should utter to make it a positive thing to accept the government's suicide pill or suicide shot. In other words, churches are now cooperating. And someone said this is the end stage of socialized medicine, because socialized medicine is less efficient than, profit medicine. The cost of the service level Canadians get is going down, down, down. So people are depressed. Took me too long to get my new knee. So what they want to do is shorten the line by having people commit suicide. They even have programs where veterans call in about, veterans, their wounds and problems. And they say, well, a better option than pain management is just doctor-assisted suicide. Just go to sleep and forget about it. The Canadian government's pushing that on their own veterans. You know they're going to do that here, don't you? You know that's coming, don't you? Several states, I think Oregon and Washington have already got it. And I think California's working. It's coming. You know it's coming. Here's my point. The beast will have all kinds of ways to deceive people, and churches will support it. I know it's hard to believe. What I call left-wing churches that are part of the establishment will support the beast and the stuff he's going to say. And it will deceive a lot of people. And Paul said, God will allow the world to believe a lie because they do not love the truth. That's what Paul said. They do not love the truth, therefore God will allow them to fall in great delusion. Don't you sense this world does not love the truth? Can't you feel it? People don't love the truth. Tell me what I want to hear. I got itching ears when they watch the news. They go to the stations and tell them what they want to hear. That's what we want. We don't want the truth. We want to hear what we want to hear. And the media, for the most part, is following suit. We must resist this trend. Keep watching prophecy, even though maybe we'll be disappointed that the end doesn't come as soon as we like. By the way, best we can tell from reading the Bible, that happened to the original apostles. You read the writings of Paul and John, and you can tell, at least at first, they thought Christ would return in their lifetime. Now, near the end, they realized that wasn't going to happen, but they thought it. Because isn't that the natural thing? Well, okay, let's say if we push the timing up because we want Christ to come back sooner and end this horrible world, that doesn't mean it isn't going to happen. And that doesn't mean it's wrong to watch. It just means what happened to us happened to the apostles. We wanted to come sooner. It's a natural tendency. We have to resist that. The one thing we have to learn is never nail anything down. Like if you say, I know Christ is coming back in 2025, which I do not think, by the way. No way I think that. I almost guarantee he won't come back in 2025 because you're publicizing it and saying it. Anyway, but watch the world move closer to the end by watching prophecy from a biblical perspective. It's the antidote to being lulled to sleep. Do not lose hope. Trust in the Bible. Stay positive. Keep on doing the little things that stabilize our faith, like coming to church, coming on our holy days. We got some coming up in the spring, days of unleavened bread. And if you're new, you'll learn all about them in the near future. Do all the little things like try and pray every day, and the little things. Read the Bible every day. Stay faithful. 1 Thessalonians 5:11. Therefore, comfort each other, edify one another, just as you also are doing. So we should come to church together where we can comfort each other, because that's part of the job. If we're encouraging each other, reinforcing each other, edifying, building up each other, that helps a lot. 1 Thessalonians 5:16. Rejoice always. Try to be positive. Pray without ceasing. In everything give thanks. Be thankful. Verse 19. Do not quench the spirit. In other words, don't do things that make God want to take his spirit away from you. Resist, openly fighting with God about stuff. Verse 20. Do not despise prophecies. By the word prophecies here doesn't just mean a sermon on prophecy. It means any sermon, just the way Paul used the word. But it's any sermon, including those on prophecy, of course. But he's saying try to appreciate the sermons and get out of it what you can. You might call it active listening, positive listening, listening to learn. Test all things, hold fast what is good. In other words, he says be thankful, be humble. We can be wrong, but never stop trying to appreciate the Bible, appreciate prophecy, appreciate sermons, hold fast to the truth. A lot of deception, strong delusion is coming. My last set of scriptures, Matthew 25. Let me set this up. In Matthew 25, what you'll see happen is the 10 virgins, and this is right after Christ was asked the question, what will be the signs of my coming? So it's the same sermon, Olivet, sermon on the Mount Olive. Christ then goes into the 10 virgins. And what he says is the 10 virgins all fall asleep. In other words, that Pax Romana, that peace and prosperity, everybody's lulled to sleep to some extent. But some maintain to keep enough spiritual juice that when they realize, whatever big prophetic event happens, maybe the temple is desecrated or the 2 witnesses came back to life or whatever it is, or they're put to death, whatever the prophetic event that shocks them, they know Christ is coming very, very soon, and they're alert and awake and spiritually ready. And the others are still spiritually asleep. They don't have enough spiritual juice. So, and at the end of that parable, here's what Christ says, Matthew 25:11. Afterwards, the other virgins came also saying, Lord, Lord, open to us. But he answered and said, assuredly, I say to you, I do not know you. In other words, you've gotten too far away from God. You let your relationship with God kind of lapse. You've gotten too cold spiritually. See, people think, I can turn on a dime. I could be as worldly and as sinful and bad as I want to be. And then at the last second, when I realize Christ is almost here, I can turn on a dime, become spiritual again. You think that, but I wouldn't bet money on it, that you can turn your life around on a dime. Because this prophecy, a parable, indicates a good chunk of the people who should know better aren't able to do it. Christ says, I don't really know you. You haven't been able to, you can't turn on a dime. And then he says, watch. And it means watch prophecy. Watch therefore, for you know not neither the day nor the hour which the Son of Man is coming. In other words, the reason you need to be watchful is because it's going to come on the world as a surprise. And if you're watching, you will not be as surprised as the world. you'll know it's getting close. Maybe you can't always know how close. Keep in touch with Christ. Pray every day. Listen to God's word and good sermons. We'll be better off spiritually. You want to keep a certain spiritual juice going, an oil, as that parable used, because you can't turn on a dime. Those that watched prophecy were stronger than those that did not watch